John Deacon, the brilliant bassist of the legendary rock band Queen, has lived much of his life in quiet seclusion since stepping away from the music world. While his bandmates remained in the spotlight, Deacon's decision to retire from the public eye left fans with lingering questions about his departure. Now at 72, John Deacon is finally breaking his silence and revealing the dark truth behind his decision to walk away from fame. In previously unseen footage, Deacon opens up about the struggles, the internal band conflicts, and the personal battles that led him to retreat from the world stage. Join us as we explore the shocking revelations and untold stories behind one of rock's most enigmatic figures and discover the truth that John Deacon is finally ready to share. Queen's struggles and success. Queen's rise to rock stardom was nothing short of extraordinary, but behind the scenes, it was a journey fraught with challenges and relentless effort. Their debut, self-titled album, despite being delayed for 2 years, did not achieve the immediate success they had hoped for. It wasn't until the release of 7 Seas of Rye from their second album, Queen 2, that the band broke into the top 10 of the UK charts. However, it was with their third album that they truly began to capture widespread attention. John Deacon, who had originally seen music as more of a hobby than a serious career, gradually realized the immense potential of the band. As the last member to join Queen, he brought a more objective perspective to the group's dynamic. However, it wasn't until the release of Sheer Heart Attack that Deacon became fully convinced of their extraordinary talent and future potential. Initially, Queen was often labeled as a heavy metal band, but the release of Killer Queen showcased the versatility of their sound and the depth of their musical range. During this time, John revealed another side of his own artistic talents by contributing his first composition to the group, a lively pop track titled Misfire. This song not only highlighted his songwriting abilities, but also allowed him to showcase his musicianship, as he played the acoustic guitar and provided a standout bass riff during the song's finale. John's influence within the band grew, as he was also credited with 25% of the writing for the high-energy track Stone Cold Crazy. This song, which would later be famously covered by Metallica, was performed by James Hetfield alongside Queen at the 1992 Freddie Mercury tribute concert. Reflecting on the recording process, Deacon remarked on the challenges of keeping up with the song's blistering tempo. He admitted, "It was very difficult to match the speed and intensity of the track." The year 1975 proved to be monumental for both Queen and John Deacon. While the world was being captivated by Freddie Mercury's Bohemian Rhapsody, the band itself was equally impressed with Deacon's contribution, a song called You're My Best Friend. Brian May expressed his admiration, noting how John's second offering to the group was unexpectedly a perfectly crafted pop song. Fans agreed as the track soared to number 7 on the UK charts, surpassing some of May's own work in popularity. In addition to playing his signature Fender Precision bass on the track, Deacon also played the electric piano, further showcasing his versatility. He even contributed double bass to the song 39, which was a track written by May. In the promotional video for You're My Best Friend, Deacon can be seen miming the electric piano part, cementing his role as a multi-talented musician within the group. Deacon's laid-back approach to Queen's legacy can be seen in how he recalls the early days of music videos. Before Bohemian Rhapsody set the standard, music videos weren't a common promotional tool. In fact, Queen's appearance on Top of the Pops was a last-minute arrangement due to the demands of their touring schedule. Their management quickly organized a mobile unit, and they were able to shoot the performance in a mere 4 hours. On Queen's following album, A Day at the Races, John only had one successful contribution, limiting his involvement somewhat. However, in the next 2 albums, both he and drummer Roger Taylor were given 2 songs each, half of what Mercury and May were typically allowed. By the time the 1980s rolled around, the dynamics between the band members began to shift, and the sense of camaraderie that had once united them started to feel strained. In 1981, Deacon openly acknowledged that, while they worked well together in the studio and on stage, the band members didn't spend much time together socially. Outside of their professional lives, each member had their own circle of friends, and there was little overlap between their personal lives. Disagreements began to surface, particularly around which songs would make it onto their albums and which would be relegated to B-sides. The distribution of royalties became a point of contention as well, as the band divided their earnings from album sales and tours equally. However, disputes arose over who would get the B-sides, which earned the same royalty rate as the more successful A-side tracks. John faced a significant challenge in trying to maintain the authenticity of his songs during the creation of the album Hot Space. He managed to get his black-influenced track Backchat recorded, but not without difficulty. The song sparked heated debates within the band. Brian May revealed that Deacon's songwriting had taken a more intense R&B direction than Queen's usual style, which led to disagreements over the inclusion of a guitar solo. Deacon, committed to preserving the track's pure R&B essence, was initially resistant to compromise. He preferred to keep the song true to its roots, without the addition of Queen's trademark guitar-heavy elements. However, May eventually convinced Deacon to incorporate a heavier sound into the track, and together, they crafted a version that satisfied both of their creative visions. This tug-of-war between differing musical styles only added to the complexity and richness of Backchat. While may have won the battle over this particular song, Deacon's collaboration with the famously charismatic Mercury proved that when the two teamed up, they were an unstoppable force within the band. Their unique blend of influences created something far greater than the sum of their parts, ensuring that Queen's music would remain timeless and innovative. But before we explore more of John's journey with Queen, it's imperative that we delve into his personal life. Early life of John Deacon. For many years, John Deacon, the iconic bassist and creative mind behind numerous Queen hits, has remained an enigma. However, now at the age of 72, he has finally revealed a dark truth that had long been kept under wraps. A deeply personal aspect of his life is coming to light, especially his struggle with relationships. After enduring immense emotional pain, he made a solemn vow never to engage romantically again, a decision that shaped much of his private life. Following the heartbreaking death of Freddie Mercury, Queen's legendary frontman, Deacon made the choice to withdraw from the spotlight. This departure left fans worldwide with a host of unanswered questions, wondering what had become of the quiet yet talented bassist. In this video, John Deacon opens up about the hidden story behind his exit from Queen, offering a rare and intimate look into his life after the band. Join us as we embark on a journey to explore the darker side of John Deacon's life, a story he has kept from the public until now. As we unravel Deacon's life and the long-guarded secrets he's protected, we'll uncover a chapter of Queen's history that has remained concealed from the world. It's a side of his life that not even the most dedicated fans could have anticipated. So let's begin by examining the early years of John Deacon. John Richard Deacon was born on August 19, 1951, at St. Francis Private Hospital on London Road in Leicester. His parents, Arthur Henry Deacon and Lillian Molly Deacon, welcomed their son with open arms and high hopes. Arthur worked diligently for the Norwich Union Insurance Company, providing a stable and comfortable life for his family. In 1960, the Deacons moved to the picturesque Leicester suburb of Oadby, where John spent the majority of his childhood. His close friends and family often referred to him with affection as Deeks or DC, nicknames that captured his warm and approachable personality. He began his education at Linden Junior School located in Evington, before continuing at Gartree High School in Oadby. It was during these early years that John's fascination with electronics took hold. He spent countless hours poring over technical magazines and tinkering with small gadgets. One of his most memorable childhood projects involved modifying a reel-to-reel tape recorder so that it could capture music directly from the radio. His burgeoning passion for technology would later play a significant role in his musical career. John's academic abilities shone through during his time at Beauchamp Grammar School in Oadby, where he earned an impressive array of qualifications including 8 GCE O-levels and 3 A-levels, all with top marks. His love for soul music grew during these formative years, heavily influencing his tastes and inspiring his own musical ambitions. In 1965, at the tender age of 14, Deacon founded his first band, The Opposition. Despite numerous lineup changes and name adjustments over the years, John's dedication to his craft never wavered. In 1969, Deacon made the tough decision to leave the Opposition and focus on his studies in electronics at Chelsea College, London. His choice to prioritize education over music seemed like a pivotal moment in his life and one that would ultimately set the stage for his future career. Was this the right decision for John Deacon? Keep watching to see how his life unfolded after this turning point. Musical career? John Deacon's journey was built on a foundation of hard work, intellectual curiosity, and a deep love for music. He grew up in a traditional middle-class family in Leicester, excelling in school while simultaneously cultivating a passion for music. Inspired by the Beatles, particularly John Lennon, Deacon swapped his toy guitar for a real one at the age of 12. Initially, he tried to emulate Lennon's style but eventually developed his own finger-picking technique, which would become a hallmark of his playing. His fascination with electronics led him to take on roles beyond just musician. Before becoming a full-time member of his first band, The Opposition, Deacon worked as both a roadie and electrician, roles that helped him better understand the technical side of music production. In 1965, he officially joined the band as a rhythm guitarist, but his fate would soon change. Although he admired Lennon, Deacon was always more inclined to follow in the footsteps of Paul McCartney. When the Opposition's bassist proved insufficiently skilled for the role, Deacon found himself taking over bass duties, playing bass lines on the lower strings of his guitar. This temporary solution worked for a while, but much like McCartney had years earlier, Deacon was eventually persuaded to switch to bass guitar full-time to meet the band's needs. In the spring of 1966, Deacon purchased his first bass guitar, a €60 Echo bass from Cox's music shop in Leicester, and made his official debut as a bassist. From that moment on, he never looked back. His life took another turn 3 years later when he decided to leave the Opposition, now known as the New Opposition then Art, to focus on his studies at Chelsea College in London. It was a bold move, but one that would prove instrumental in shaping his future. Deacon's life changed forever when he met Brian May and Roger Taylor at a party. They invited him to audition for their new band, Queen, at Imperial College. John was the perfect fit for the dynamic group. At first I was quite reserved, feeling like an outsider, Deacon reflected. But I think my quiet nature helped me integrate well. Previous bass players didn't gel with the group, mostly due to personality clashes. I didn't have that issue because I wasn't trying to outshine Brian or Freddie. His humble, understated presence became a key element in the chemistry that made Queen one of the greatest rock bands in history. The challenges of Hot Space and creative tensions. The early stages of Hot Space saw Queen experimenting with new sounds, with one of the first tracks they worked on being Cool Cat. This laid-back song featured a smooth bass line, perfectly setting the tone, while Freddie Mercury improvised jazzy melodies over the top. The initial version of the track was quite different from Queen's typical style, with David Bowie originally contributing backing vocals. Bowie had unexpectedly joined the band during their recording sessions at their studio in Montreux, Switzerland, where he would also lend his voice to another bass-heavy track that ended up on the album. That song, Under Pressure, became an instant hit, soaring to the top of the UK charts. However, despite this success, the struggles surrounding Hot Space were just beginning to surface. Years later, the reasons for the album's commercial failure became clear, and the details were disheartening. Hot Space served as a harsh reminder that after scaling great heights, the only direction left is often down. Released in May 1982, Queen's 10th studio album followed 2 years after their previous release, The Game. The lengthy production period was partly due to rising tensions within the band, as guitarist Brian May later revealed. To avoid distractions, the band decided to isolate themselves in Munich, hoping to channel their energy solely into creating music. But this self-imposed isolation only seemed to magnify their differences. Brian May described the time in Munich as both difficult and unhealthy, with the band members no longer aligned in their creative visions. According to May, each member faced personal struggles, and these tensions influenced the way they worked together, or rather, didn't. Instead of recording collectively as a group, they often found themselves working alone in the studio, a departure from their earlier, more collaborative process. Despite these challenges, Queen continued to push forward, experimenting with new sounds and carving out a different musical identity on Hot Space. Moving away from the elaborate, multi-layered production that had defined their earlier albums, the band adopted simpler arrangements, incorporating synthesizers, dance rhythms, and even brass elements. This shift marked a clear break from the complex soundscapes that had made them international superstars. While this exploration was bold, it wasn't entirely unexpected. Queen had always been known for their willingness to venture into different genres. Hints of this stylistic shift had already appeared in Under Pressure, which embraced a more danceable sound. However, the full dive into funk and dance music on Hot Space alienated many fans and critics alike. The album received lukewarm reviews, and its commercial performance reflected that, peaking at number 4 in the UK and failing to crack the top 20 in the United States. The album's lead single, Body Language, did moderately well in both regions, but the subsequent singles failed to generate the same enthusiasm. As Queen embarked on what would be their last US tour, the members seemed to alternate between defensiveness and resignation when discussing the album in press interviews. Drummer Roger Taylor insisted that they were more interested in making music that inspired them personally, rather than trying to meet the public's expectations. Taylor argued that sticking to the same formula would have stifled their creativity. He believed that Queen had evolved far beyond their early days, and to confine themselves to a single style would have been an injustice to their artistic growth. Freddie Mercury shared this sentiment, expressing confidence that their music remained relevant. "We weren't too upset," Mercury stated. "We knew our music still had an audience, and we were determined to show that." However, the band's determination soon began to wane. Reflecting in 2014, Brian May admitted that Hot Space had been a mistake, particularly in terms of timing. Although he stopped short of calling it Queen's worst album, he acknowledged that their foray into funk came at a moment when the disco trend had already begun to decline in popularity. The misstep proved to be more significant than they could have anticipated. The downfall of Queen in the US. This change in Queen's musical direction would have far-reaching consequences, especially in the United States. In 1980, John Deacon had penned Another One Bites the Dust, a song that catapulted Queen to the height of their success in the US. Ironically, just a few years later, another Deacon track would contribute to their downfall in that market. Released in 1984 as part of the album The Works, I Want to Break Free became a global sensation. The song was accompanied by a humorous music video in which all 4 members of Queen dressed in drag, parodying the British soap opera Coronation Street. While the video was received with laughter and appreciation in much of the world, American audiences failed to grasp the reference. Instead, many perceived the video as a sign that the band had lost its sense of direction or, worse, its sanity. This misunderstanding marked the beginning of Queen's decline in popularity in the US, a fall from grace that persisted throughout Freddie Mercury's lifetime. The controversy surrounding I Want to Break Free wasn't limited to the United States. The song sparked debates wherever it went. In South America, a region Queen had grown fond of following their successful 1980 tour, the track's lyrics were interpreted as a political call for freedom rather than a simple story of lost love. This misinterpretation led to tension during the band's performance at the Rock in Rio festival in 1985. During the show, Freddie Mercury wore fake breasts as part of his costume, provoking a backlash from the massive crowd of 200,000. It wasn't until he removed the props that the audience began to warm to the performance. Despite this mishap, Queen's relationship with South America remained positive, especially compared to their earlier experiences in the region. Their first tour had been somewhat daunting. John Deacon recalled how they barely made it to their car after one performance, shaken by the intensity of the crowd. At one point, the car had to stop for fuel, and before long, it was surrounded by frenzied fans banging on the windows and roof. The driver, unfamiliar with such chaos, was at a loss for how to proceed. By 1985, Queen had moved past those early challenges and went on to exceed even their own expectations. Their performance at Live Aid became one of the most iconic moments in music history. Playing in front of a global audience of over 500 million people, Queen stole the show, reaffirming their place in rock royalty despite the setbacks they had faced in the preceding years. Freddie Mercury's death and Deacon's retirement. John Deacon recalls that he wasn't particularly familiar with Bob Geldof at the time they were asked to perform at Live Aid. The band, accustomed to playing smaller gigs, was surprised by the request, especially since they were only allotted a 20-minute set and wouldn't even have a sound check. While initially hesitant, the band, after concluding their tour of Japan, found themselves at a hotel, debating whether to go through with the plan. In the end, they decided to take part, and it became a moment that filled them with immense pride, a rarity in an industry that often fosters the opposite feeling. The atmosphere during Live Aid was electric, with musicians setting aside their usual competitive egos to unite for a cause. The experience boosted Queen's confidence, revealing the vast support they still had in England and emphasizing the band's true potential. However, Deacon's trademark shyness was on full display that day. He had been scheduled to meet Prince Charles and Princess Diana and accompany them to the royal box, but his anxiety got the better of him. In the end, it was Spider, the band's roadie, who stepped in to greet the royal couple, shaking hands with Princess Diana in John's place. The photos from that encounter turned Spider into an unexpected star, briefly making him one of the most famous roadies in the world. In the mid-1980s, the collaboration between Freddie Mercury and John Deacon became more prominent. Their 1986 album, A Kind of Magic, featured 2 tracks credited to either Mercury or Deacon. Building on the style they had begun with Cool Cat, these new songs fused John's funk influences with Freddie's pop instincts. One track, Pain Is So Close to Pleasure, saw Freddie attempting to channel Diana Ross's vocal style to complement John's deep, bass-driven groove, while Friends Will Be Friends emerged as a classic Queen anthem, achieving moderate success. However, tensions began to surface as they worked on their next studio album, The Miracle. Though both Mercury and Deacon contributed heavily to the project, neither seemed eager to take credit, particularly when it came to the song My Baby Does Me. During a 1989 interview for BBC Radio, Freddie reminisced that John had come up with the track's distinctive bass line, but Deacon was quick to deny it, claiming the idea was Freddie's. These occasional disagreements were part of the creative process, but for John, the act of songwriting remained crucial for his mental health, especially during the long gaps between album releases. While he took great pride in his bass playing, he viewed his songwriting contributions and involvement in the decision-making process as essential to his fulfillment within the band. Soon after the release of The Miracle, Queen began working on what would become their next album. By this time, Freddie Mercury was aware that his time was running out, though he kept the severity of his illness private, even from the rest of the band. Despite this, he pressed forward with recording sessions, not only completing Innuendo but also living to see its release, along with another greatest hits collection. Incredibly, Mercury even mustered the strength to lay down the foundational tracks for what would be his final musical project, all before the tragic reality of his condition took hold. Following Mercury's last live performance with Queen in August 1986, rumors about his health began to circulate. In October of that year, British tabloids News of the World and The Sun reported that Mercury had undergone HIV/AIDS testing at a clinic on Harley Street. Despite these reports, Mercury publicly claimed that he was in good health. His partner Jim Hutton later revealed that Freddie had in fact been diagnosed with AIDS in late April 1987. Around the same time, Mercury told interviewers that he had tested negative for HIV, but the British press continued to speculate about his health. Over the next several years, rumors about his condition only intensified, fueled by his visibly deteriorating appearance, Queen's decision to stop touring, and revelations from some of his former partners, who shared information with tabloid reporters. By 1990, discussions of Mercury's ill health were widespread as his declining physical condition became harder to conceal. In the final stages of his life, Mercury's eyesight began to fail, and his health rapidly declined, leaving him bedridden. Choosing to face his fate head-on, Freddie refused further treatment, opting instead for palliative care to ease his pain. On November 22, 1991, Freddie summoned Queen's manager Jim Beach to his home in Kensington to draft a public statement addressing his condition. The announcement was made the following day. Just 24 hours after this statement was released, on the night of November 24, 1991, Freddie Mercury passed away at the age of 45 in his Kensington home. The official cause of death was bronchial pneumonia, brought on by complications from AIDS. Dave Clark, a close friend and frontman of the Dave Clark Five, was at Freddie's bedside when he took his final breath. Mercury's passing not only marked the end of an era for Queen but also had a profound and lasting impact on John Deacon. Freddie Mercury's death in November 1991 left an indelible mark on John Deacon, who was deeply shaken by the loss of his longtime friend and bandmate. For Deacon, there was simply no way forward without Freddie. He expressed that there was no point in continuing Queen without Mercury's presence. Unlike Brian May and Roger Taylor, who would go on to pursue solo careers, Deacon never sought the spotlight for himself. He admitted that he couldn't sing, something he wished he could do to make songwriting more accessible. With Freddie gone, John Deacon gradually withdrew from the music scene altogether, making only a few brief appearances with the band before retiring completely. His decision to step away was a reflection of how closely he had tied his identity as a musician to Queen and to Mercury. Without Freddie, Deacon felt there was no future for the band, and he remained true to that conviction for the rest of his life. Deacon's post-Queen activities. Although John Deacon has lived a largely private life since stepping away from Queen, he did briefly emerge with a solo project in 1986 under the name The Immortals. This project produced the song No Turning Back, the theme for the remake of Biggles that year. However, sightings of Deacon are quite rare, and updates about him often come through the occasional mentions in Queen's Fan Club magazine. These mentions are usually about him vacationing with his family or provide sparse information about his activities. Over the years, Deacon has participated in limited session work, mostly contributing to Queen's solo projects. Notably, he worked on a remix of Roger's I Cry For You, performed on Freddie Mercury's How Can I Go On, and lent his talents to projects involving Brian May's protégés such as Anita Dobson and Monaco Honda. Deacon also collaborated with Errol Brown of Hot Chocolate on a single and contributed to 2 Elton John albums, Ice on Fire and Leather Jackets. In a rather unexpected moment, Deacon even appeared in a video for Morris Minor and the Majors, wearing a blue wig. A rare light-hearted cameo. Since his last major public appearance at the 1992 Freddie Mercury tribute concert, Deacon has remained largely out of the public eye. He did make a few select appearances, such as backing performances by Genesis and Pink Floyd at a private EMI event. However, his most notable performance in recent years occurred at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. There, Deacon joined the Spike Edney All-Stars, a group of former Queen members supported by the fan club, for a brief set. His entrance was delayed, seemingly catching him off guard as the crowd erupted into applause. Deacon performed a couple of soul songs that were outside of the Queen catalog, but notably left the stage before the band played Crazy Little Thing Called Love. He did not return for the encore, despite the large number of musicians involved, surprising many. Deacon's connection to Queen has remained minimal in his retirement. He was reportedly unhappy with the cover of We Are the Champions by Brian May, Roger Taylor, and Robbie Williams, which was recorded for the film A Knight's Tale. True to his decision to retire from the public eye, Deacon chose not to attend Queen's induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2001. Further distancing himself from the band's public life. Personal life and family. John Deacon's absence extended to Queen's later collaborations, including the band's work with singer Paul Rodgers. When the Queen plus Paul Rodgers collaboration took place, Deacon was replaced on bass by Danny Miranda. On the album The Cosmos Rocks, bass duties were shared between Brian May and Rodgers, although Deacon was still acknowledged in the CD liner notes. Despite his physical absence, Brian May later revealed that Deacon remains involved in Queen's business dealings, though he prefers to stay out of the spotlight and away from the public eye. One of the more unexpected tributes to Deacon came in 2013, when a newly discovered species of damselfly in Brazil was named Heterogrion johndeaconi in his honor. This damselfly was one of 4 flatwing species named after the members of Queen, celebrating the 40th anniversary of the band's debut album. The species name was chosen as a way of acknowledging Deacon's contributions to music and songwriting, a fitting tribute for a man who has often shunned the limelight. In a 2014 interview with Rolling Stone, Brian May and Roger Taylor discussed their North American tour with Adam Lambert, performing under the name Queen plus Adam Lambert. When asked about John Deacon, they revealed that their interaction with him is minimal, confined mostly to financial matters. Roger Taylor in particular noted that Deacon had completely withdrawn from social life and described him as fragile. Despite this, May emphasized that Deacon still plays an important role in overseeing Queen's financial affairs, and they always seek his approval before making any financial decisions. For live performances, the band has been working with session bassist Neil Fairclough, further distancing Deacon from any potential reunion. In 2022, Brian May spoke to Rock FM Spain and addressed the recurring requests for Deacon to rejoin Queen. He made it clear that Deacon had repeatedly declined these invitations, choosing instead to stay in his private life. May acknowledged that even if Deacon were to change his mind, it would be difficult for him to adjust to the significant changes in the music industry and live performances. May and Taylor have adapted to some of these changes, blending both traditional and modern aspects of the industry, but they recognize that Deacon's return is highly unlikely. May expressed that while he would love for Deacon to return, he doubts it will ever happen. Musical style and legacy. John Deacon has long been viewed as the quiet, understated backbone of Queen. Although he rarely sought the spotlight, his bandmates always acknowledged his immense talent as the ideal bassist for their sound. Deacon himself once hinted at the possibility of a casual, stress-free reunion, but he was clear that a public return to the stage wasn't something he was interested in. Known for his calm and reserved nature, Deacon preferred to avoid conflicts during rehearsals, choosing to let his music speak for itself rather than engage in heated discussions. Deacon met his future wife, Veronica Tetzlaff, in 1971 while they were both living in London. At the time, Deacon was a student at Chelsea College of Science and Technology, studying electronics, while Veronica was training to become a teacher. Although the specific details of their first meeting aren't widely known, it is clear that they began dating shortly afterward. They have lived in Putney, a suburban area in southwest London, for many years, raising their family there. As Queen's popularity grew, Veronica supported Deacon through the band's early challenges and eventual worldwide fame. Despite the pressures of constant rehearsals, recording sessions, and extensive touring schedules, their relationship remained strong. On January 18, 1975, John Deacon and Veronica Tetzlaff were married, just as Queen was beginning to gain serious recognition following the success of their third album, Sheer Heart Attack. Their wedding was a private affair, in line with Deacon's desire to keep his personal life away from public scrutiny. Shortly after their marriage, the couple began their family. Their first child, Robert, was born in July 1975. Followed by Michael in 1978, Laura in 1979, Joshua in 1983, Luke in 1992, and Cameron in 1993. Even as Queen's fame skyrocketed, Deacon made sure to prioritize his family life, frequently choosing to spend time at home over indulging in the rock star lifestyle. A key moment in Queen's history came when they decided to part ways with Trident, their original management company, after the agency refused to help Deacon secure a mortgage for a house. This bold decision marked the beginning of Queen's financial and creative independence. By 2019, Deacon's financial success was well established, with an estimated net worth of €130 million, as reported by the Sunday Times Rich List. His wealth largely comes from royalties and earnings generated by Queen's extensive music catalog, which continues to bring in substantial income through album sales, streaming platforms, and licensing deals. The 2018 biopic Bohemian Rhapsody, which grossed over $900 million globally, further boosted Deacon's financial standing. In 1973, Rolling Stone magazine described the synergy between Roger Taylor and John Deacon as creating a seismic impact on Queen's music. Deacon's role extended beyond playing bass. He also contributed guitar parts and even experimented with synthesizers on certain tracks. His guitar work on Hot Space, for instance, featured a clean, crisp sound from a Fender Telecaster, highlighting his versatility as a musician. Deacon also composed music on the piano, frequently using a Wurlitzer electric piano, particularly on tracks like You're My Best Friend. While he never sang on Queen's studio recordings, Deacon would occasionally provide backing vocals during live performances. In the music video for Spread Your Wings, he is shown playing the grand piano, even though it was Freddie Mercury who played the piano on the recording. In the early stages of his career, Deacon played an echo bass with his first band, The Opposition, before transitioning to a Rickenbacker 4001. Throughout Queen's journey, his preferred instrument became the Fender Precision bass, which he modified over time to suit his style. In the later years of Queen, he also favored a custom bass made by Roger Giffen and occasionally used an Ernie Ball Music Man Stingray for live performances. As an electronics enthusiast, Deacon also made significant technical contributions to the band. he famously built the DC amplifier in 1972 using salvaged parts, and this amp became a key piece of equipment for both Deacon and Brian May during Queen's recordings. Typically, Deacon played bass using his fingers, although he occasionally used a pick for certain songs. Deacon drew inspiration from a variety of musical influences. He often cited Chic, Michael Jackson, and Stevie Wonder as artists who shaped his sound. When asked about bass players he admired, Deacon mentioned Chris Squire of Yes and John Entwistle of The Who as his top influences. One of the distinctive aspects of Deacon's bass playing was his use of intricate bass runs that added depth and complexity to Queen's music. A 1975 review of Sheer Heart Attack noted that it wasn't until the album's later tracks that a new listener might fully appreciate John Deacon's unique playing style. Despite being the least publicly recognized member of Queen, Deacon is widely regarded as one of the most talented bassists of his generation. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure to check out the next video suggested on your screen.